I don't know if you've heard, but the US is banning routers soon. I know that sounds like total clickbait for an intro, but it's actually true. Specifically, the ban targets all new foreign-made routers. Now, if you're anything like me, you can see through the looking glass here at the massive potential ramifications. Basically, almost every router anyone buys is manufactured outside the US. What is this going to mean for the cost? What about availability? It feels like we're standing at another precipice, similar to the RAM price situation from a few years back. Sometimes I daydream about going back in time just to buy a bunch of RAM before the prices skyrocketed. Well, we may very well be in that exact moment of time for routers. But we all know how these things go. They can be filled with so many asterisks and stipulations that it becomes impossible to make heads or tails of anything. Fear not, because here at TechVibes, we have done the digging, the reading, the research, and the testing. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how much all of this will impact you and what you should do about it. So let's dive in. When I first heard about all this, the most obvious thing I wanted to know was simple. What is actually changing? What exactly can and can't we buy once this goes into effect? The devil is always in the details with this kind of thing. Apparently, this change only applies to future routers, so all current routers on the market are safe for now. When I first read this, for a moment, I thought, well, this sounds fine. I almost dropped my concern entirely. But unfortunately, there's more to it than that. Even aside from the fact that this is likely going to impact the ability to release security updates for those existing routers, just think about it for a second. The router market, at least for foreign routers, which is basically every major brand, is going to be frozen in time. Any future improvements or innovations will be out of our reach unless we switch to domestic routers. And I know what you're thinking. Well, if Wi-Fi 8 comes out, I'll just get it from some American-made router manufacturer. Well, I have bad news for you. There aren't really any decent American router companies. NETGEAR is made in Vietnam and Taiwan. TP-Link is made in China. Linksys is in Taiwan. Your best bet for actual American-made routers are Starlink and Buffalo Americas. Of course, my favorite router brand, Buffalo Americas. Everyone knows they exist, right? Worse still, with the real router market frozen in time, any economics teacher will tell you what this does to prices. It isn't good. I will say though, not all hope is lost. This new FCC rule does outline a way to file for an exemption. NETGEAR has actually done that very thing already. But unfortunately, unless every router brand files for and is accepted for an exemption, which would negate the point of the change, the broader shift is still coming. Routers are about to be scarcer, less innovative, and worst of all, more expensive. So now the question becomes simple. What can we do before that happens? I want to get ahead of the curve before I'm looking back filled with regret. As I'm making this video, Wi-Fi 7 is the newest, most cutting-edge tech for consumer routers. And unlike previous Wi-Fi version changes, 7 seems to be a massive leap forward. It improves things like bandwidth and connection stability significantly. But the biggest jump is actually in raw speeds. Going from Wi-Fi 6 to 7, you don't just double your max possible speeds. You don't even triple them. No, you increase it by nearly 5 times. So if we're going to future-proof ourselves, we need to look at Wi-Fi 7. But exactly how much do we need to spend? I'm not the type of person who needs the absolute top-of-the-line gear. I just want to invest in a decent current router before they all double in price. Rather than doing abstract tests, I decided to get practical. I found 2 of the most popular and well-reviewed Wi-Fi 7 routers out there, one at $87 and one at a premium $180. The plan was simple. Install each in a house, use it for a while, and see which one felt better. Ultimately, all I care about is how they feel in day-to-day use. As such, I scooped these 2 up and we got to testing. Our test subject for this is my videographer, Zach. My house is very small, so even the cheapest routers handle every situation perfectly. But Zach has a big house to fit his family. A huge house will really push the router's range to its limits, and his kids and their dozens of devices will be a great test for reliability. The cheaper router arrived first, so it was the first to test, at $87. I should note that TP-Link sometimes gets a bad rap online. But I promise you, if you find the right model, a lot of their stuff is actually really good. It has a 2.5 gigabit port, which is twice as fast as I even pay for at home. It even made several top routers of 2026 lists. I sent Zach, along with our writer Tyson, to get everything set up. While they were there, I had Tyson run some speed tests at various ranges. He ran 3 tests, one right next to the router, one a room away, and one on the complete other side of the house. For the baseline ISP router, the range was surprisingly dire. Right next to it, it clocked in at the 2 gigabits per second that Zach pays for. But even one room over, those speeds dropped all the way down to 330 megabits per second. That's an 85% drop just one room away. On the other side of the house, it crashed down to a pitiful 13 megabits per second. That is a 99% drop in speed. That is not good. Needless to say, the ISP router set a low bar. How would the TP-Link compete? For the close test, the TP-Link actually dropped a bit, coming in at 1.8 gigabits per second. That could just be a margin of error. For the room around the corner, things took a stark turn, 690 megabits per second. That is literally twice as much as the ISP router. Since this is Zach's living room where they stream movies, that increase makes all the difference. That just leaves the farthest room. Tyson ran the test in there, and the result was 27 megabits per second. Look, that still isn't amazing, but technically speaking, it is a 208% improvement. I actually wasn't expecting that big of a bump for the furthest room. Usually improvements are more about reliability than raw range, but a 208% increase is what we got. Overall, it's a strong initial showing for the TP-Link. It's already well worth the cost. But what about real-life use? Wi-Fi isn't all about speed tests. It's about how it feels when you come home from work and want to stream a movie without buffering. I left the router at Zach's house for over a week. A week later, I asked him how it went. He said everyone was annoyed they had to sign into a new network, but once that was done, it was smooth sailing. Streaming in the living room felt much better. The biggest difference was for his son, who finally realized that decent internet was actually an option. Next, it was time to set up the expensive router, the NETGEAR Nighthawk. For a whopping $100 extra over the TP-Link, I was expecting big things. This thing better have flawless reliability and maybe even do his taxes. It is definitely a better looking router with a sleeker design. It touts a longer range than the TP-Link and better total bandwidth. However, Tyson and Zach ran into a major hurdle during setup. Unlike the TP-Link, every single step for the NETGEAR required a 5-minute loading screen. It took them over 45 minutes just to do the initial setup. Once it was finally running, they tested the performance. For the same room test, the results were identical to the TP-Link. For the one room over test, the speed was 730 megabits per second. That's a slight improvement over the TP-Link, but only by about 6%. That isn't great given the 200% price increase. Then came the true range test in the far room. The final speed came in at 15 megabits per second. That is only 2 more than the ISP router and way less than the cheap TP-Link. It seems the NETGEAR isn't about range, which makes sense because it lacks external antennas. We left it there for a week anyway to test reliability. When I asked Zach for his feedback, he said it felt pretty much the same as the first router. This router does have features that put it over the TP-Link on paper, like a third 6 GHz band. Yet, no one in his family noticed a difference. It raises the question, is a spec upgrade actually an upgrade if no one notices it? So, what's the overall takeaway? If you are behind on your router situation, now is probably the last good chance you'll have to fix it. Even if some brands get exceptions, supply will drop and prices will soar. If you're stuck on Wi-Fi 5 or 6, now is your chance. In that situation, the TP-Link is a great choice. It's priced reasonably and actually managed better range than its expensive brother. From our tests, range really is king. Back in the day, reliability improvements in Wi-Fi 5 made a huge difference. But with Wi-Fi 7, it feels like the stability issues are mostly solved for the average person. There are power user situations where the NETGEAR might shine with its extra ports and bands, but for most of us, range is what matters. The TP-Link won our range test, so that's the one Zach is keeping. I may have wasted $180 on the NETGEAR, but I'll never complain about finding a good deal for the channel. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps us out. Don't forget to subscribe to TechVibes for more tech news and deep dives. Let us know in the comments if you're planning to upgrade your setup before these changes hit. Peace out, and I'll see you in the next one.